Welcome to the Millennial Body Image Project. We're two licensed dietitian nutritionists bringing you conversations that cut through the food noise, debunk wellness trends, and remind you that it's not you, it's the systems stacked against you.
Together, we'll explore the struggles so many of us carry, challenge the fear-mongering that fuels them, and offer evidence-based, compassionate tools to support your body on its own terms.
Because your lived experience matters, and your body is not the problem.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Millennial Body Image Project. On today's episode, we're kind of dropping you into the middle of a conversation that Christina and I were having about a couple of clients of ours that are having some similar struggles related to food noise. And we were discussing this and we were like, hold on, we should probably record this for the podcast because I think this conversation will be helpful for a lot of people. So what we're really getting into today is talking about why the feeling of fullness can feel so triggering to people, whether you are in eating disorder recovery or not. And so we're talking about this fear of eating too much and how that can contribute to some nervous system dysregulation. We're going to be breaking down why satisfaction and fullness both get interpreted as danger for some people, depending on your history of your relationship with food, and how diet culture can play a major role in this.
I know. Well, you know what's funny is sometimes I think about when I have clients who there are like certain behavior changes that are very scary and so they keep getting stuck in the same cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels like when you have a friend who keeps dating the same type of assholes and they like keep complaining about them, but they're just like keep going on dates with them.
Welcome to eating disorder treatment.
Welcome to my side of the woods. That is 100% how it feels. And every now and again, you get this amazing unicorn who's really ready to make changes and everything is like in step and they're making changes, but they're very honest about how they're feeling. But to me, that really shows where they are in their healing journey and how ready they are, you know? So, but it is so true. It's like sometimes I keep saying, I hear you. I hear how much you hate this. And how you want things to change and how you want solutions, but you don't want solutions because all of the solutions involve you eating. And you're looking for a solution that convenienttheoriesforme.com comes along and reinforces and allows you to continue doing this. And it's really hard. Speaking of discomfort.
Speaking of discomfort, yes. So this episode for you all today is a follow-up to the episode that we did a couple of weeks ago that was talking about binge eating and overeating. We're going to have another episode for you guys on that. But on this, I was having a session with a client also talking about the hunger fullness scale that we had mentioned a couple of times ago. And we were talking about how she felt like she was really stuck because she's been out of touch with her hunger and fullness signals like we had talked about last time for a really long time. And now we're learning what are the different physical, emotional, mental health kind of signs of hunger and fullness. And so she was learning to pinpoint, okay, this is when I feel a 6 out of 10, or this is when I feel a 2 out of 10 and other stuff like that. And then we had gotten into, okay, so I'm speaking as a client. I'm starting to feel intensely uncomfortable when I get to, let's say, like an 8 out of 10 on the hunger fullness scale. What I describe as a 10 out of 10 is like, I just had the biggest Thanksgiving meal of my life and like I am down for the count, right? And then 9 is less than that, 8 is less than that. I describe to her, 8 is like, you've had a really great restaurant meal and you ate a little bit more than you normally do. And you're like, a little bit more than I normally do. And like, I feel like I definitely feel full, but I'm not panicking or anything. This is for someone who has more of a regulated nervous system around eating, right? When we got to this person, she was talking about how I'm kind of preemptively starting to freak out and feel really dysregulated when I realize that I am out of 7 out of 10 on the hunger fullness scale because I know that it takes your body a little while to digest. And so that makes me fearful that I'm actually going to be at an 8 in about 20 to 30 minutes, and they are intensely uncomfortable at being at an 8. So what I wanted to talk about today with you all and with Christina, obviously, is that what do we do to help freak out less, knowing that it is perfectly normal and okay for you to feel fullness in your body. But how do we stop that freak out from happening? How do we stop all of that noise, the food noise, from coming up when you do feel intensely uncomfortable, even with the thought of being what we would consider to be satisfied with a meal?
I have two quick things to kind of share in response initially. My initial response is one, I really love how self aware this client is and how they're diving into and identifying where they are in their hunger and fullness cues and how they're aware of how their body reacts in certain types of levels and like where they are. I think that's awesome and a really great key in them being able to hear their interoceptive awareness, undo some of the diet stuff that they have deeply embedded in them with like, we're going to get into that. This idea of being uncomfortable with being full and all that stuff too. And then the other part that I'm thinking about too that I think is important is I also really love how vulnerable and honest they are about I'm struggling when I get to this place, even though you're telling me that on the scale, that's not that bad. Like it's almost like their nervous system is reacting to a satisfactory meal as if they just had 30, like a total binge episode or something. And to me, this is less about the food itself and more about how their body is reacting to the food intake and the idea of feeling satisfied. It's like as we were discussing this beforehand, it's as if their body is reacting to food as if it's unsafe and their nervous system's like, this is unsafe, and the alarms are going off and they are going into full blown like fight and flight. Right? They're like, I have to stop. I can't go further than this. This is really dangerous. This is overwhelming. Like kind of like you can hear as they're talking about it and the way you're relaying it, you can hear the anxiety about it building up. And that does not lend itself to digesting our food all that well, right? So we have to, in the way that I think about this is we have to, one, acknowledge, yes, I hear you. I see all this. Two, your nervous system is reacting to food as if it's something dangerous. We have to fix that because it's not dangerous. It's food. And it's healing and it's supportive and it's supposed to be there and it's supposed to be in your body. But for some reason, their body and their nervous system is reacting to this as if it is a full-fledged bear attack happening in their home. And really all it is a couple bites of food. And that is very interesting place to start, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think the two places that we can go from there is one, thinking about why is this so dysregulating to you?
Mm-hmm.
And we can, this can apply to a lot of different people because obviously we're not going to do any like privacy protected information on any episode, is thinking about in your personal journey with food, body image, all of this other stuff, what are the major touch points that you feel like might be impacting you here? Do you have negative associations with being full? Okay, that's a pretty safe assumption, probably. Then why is that the case, right? Do we have a history of highly restrictive tendencies? Do we have a history of binge eating? Do we have a history of food reactions? Like, what are all the different things that are going into this? And then Christina brought up a great point that I would like us to go into next before we started recording.
What did I say?
You're going to know exactly what I say as soon as I start going. But there's this point of why are most of us so okay with being intensely hungry, but not okay with being mildly satisfied?
I know.
In terms of fullness.
Oh, guys, it's so bad. When you say it so bluntly like that, no one thinks of it that way when you're actually doing it. But when you stop and take a step back, that is exactly what's happening. We have such ease and comfort, not everybody. Some people completely dysregulated and fall apart when they don't have access to food. That's also very normal, guys, very normal to have that nervous system reaction to a famine because your body doesn't know the difference. But
It is really interesting to me how we have this culturally ingrained and training that happens at a very, I think, a very young age around this idea, well, you don't want to eat too much. And I think it probably starts back with the idea of like, don't spoil your dinner. I think about that with kids and stuff like, don't spoil your dinner, don't eat too much, you're going to be full, this, that, and the other, all the different things that we hear at such a young age. But there is this, like, we have this, like, people, a point of pride for a lot of people, where this idea of feeling hungry is a win. And this idea of feeling satisfied and or full or more than satisfied teeters on complete panic attack because it does feel like this personal failing. And I think it comes down to, in a lot of ways, how diet culture has ingrained in us that you're not allowed to eat too much or that this is what will happen if you have too much. And so any sensation of fullness or over fullness or I feel food in my body starts to feel very uncomfortable for people. And so they want to stop earlier. But then what you're really doing is restricting yourself. That's ultimately what's happening, is that it is just restriction in a new packaging with a little bow on it that's saying, hey, I'm listening to my body. It's like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're not listening to your body because you actually need more than that. You're stopping yourself preemptively because you're scared about how something's going to feel. And that is restriction. It's the same thing of saying like, I'm not going to eat breakfast this morning because I don't like the way that I feel when I have breakfast, even though because it messes up my whole day because then I feel whatever. It's like, that's restriction. That is a form of restriction. You can call it anything you want. You can call it, we can justify these things. We can, as my favorite saying is, we can go to convenienttheoriesforme.com and a bunch of different stuff that justifies these things for us. And that's okay, right? We do that. We all do that. Everyone does that about various different things in their life. I love convenient theories for me. Absolutely love them. But also at the same time, we also have to acknowledge that it's a convenient theory for me. And I am using this to justify something that's going on. And really what's happening is I don't want to feel uncomfortable. But also at the same time, why would we ever want to feel uncomfortable? Like that makes sense. But there's something in us that I believe is taught. Maybe in some households more than others, but it is taught to be okay with going longer periods of time without eating versus being satisfied. That is something that is like very much a ingrained cultural thing that we get more pride out of that and people feel better about it and it feels more socially acceptable to put off eating than it is. And to me, I feel like this is why disordered eating patterns are not just about food, because it's not really about food, guys, if you really think about it. That's why so much of this is such a therapeutic, multi-prong approach to undoing some of this stuff, because a lot of it is up here in our mind, convincing us certain types of things or our nervous system. Like I would honestly, like seriously ask that person and say, what happens in your body when this happens? What's happening to you? Okay, this is dysregulation. Okay, why does your body feel like this is unsafe? Why are the alarm bells going off? Why are red flags getting thrown? Why is your body going from a state of calm to now a state of panic? Your body has been trained to believe that eating and satisfaction and feeling full is unsafe for the body and is triggering fight, flight, freeze, all the different things that nervous system responds. Okay, let's go back in time. What has happened? What has happened when you were full? Was there something traumatic that happened? Maybe it was. Maybe they had like an incident where something happened and they had diarrhea, like afterwards or something like that. And it was in public and it was humiliating. That's totally valid. I'd be scared of doing that too. Like that's totally understandable, right? But we have to then process that and remind ourselves, okay, it's not that time. I've worked through these things and it is safe for me to eat and it's safe for me to have food in my stomach. It's normal for me to have a normal sensation of food. It's normal for my body to take 20 minutes to digest my dinner or my lunch or whatever meal that I'm having. It's normal, guys. It's normal to feel full. It's normal to have a digestive system that's going to take time for it to break down and digest and go through your body. But, eventually it does get better. It does not last forever.
And I wonder so that's more of like the personal level and going back into your personal history, right?
Yeah.
I wonder for a lot of people also the overarching concepts that everyone is influenced by, especially in the US, I wonder how much of this is like going back to the Puritan times of like the sin of gluttony and how
Oh
much
my
this gets wrapped up
God.
in morality, right? But then in more recent times, I would say, let me know if this has been a thought in your mind or you've been taught this at some point or absorbed it like a sponge at some point. But I feel like a lot of people just associate being hungry with actively losing weight and being full with actively gaining weight. And so a lot of this is probably also just a fear of gaining weight
100%.
for a lot of people.
Are you kidding? Of course it is. Because think about it, right? The entire concept. I remember one time at my office years ago, this dude, he was so annoying, but I loved him at the time. He was he was cool, nice guy, whatever. But his perspective.
Wait, what? You just that
I
was
know.
whiplash. He was so annoying, but he was so nice.
He was annoying about food. He was annoying about bodies. He was like super into fitness and he thought he knew everything. And I remember him saying, you
course.
eat half, you half your body. And I was like, dude, if
What?
that were the case, you would be smaller. And every person out there in the world would be smaller because that is not how bodies and food and nutrients work. But that is a belief. People literally believe if you eat half or a less amount, you will be smaller because deprivation is it. Think about every single diet that you've ever done, right? Think about Weight Watchers. It's a perfect example of this. The entire idea behind Weight Watchers is to deprive yourself.
And every diet ever.
And convince yourself that you're satisfied with less food.
Have you ever seen, so there's this gif from RuPaul's Drag Race, and one of the queens is like, convince yourself. Delusion.
No.
If I could find it, I'll put it in the episode.
No, that's 100% accurate. I mean, literally, that's what it was. You would try, and they would try to convince you that you were satisfied, right? And then what happened with Weight Watchers is that backfired like crazy, and they weren't getting results. So you know what they did? They made fruits and vegetables all 0 points so that people could gorge out on those to be satisfied, but not eat enough of the other things that actually made them feel satisfied. So instead of just increasing the caloric amount for people to eat so they actually felt satisfied after their meals, they cut them in half and then said, convince yourself that you're satisfied. And so now anytime that you're any more than that, you think to yourself, well, this is terrible. I'm now going to blow up like a house and be as big as everything and everything. It's going to get out of control and it's going to completely take over everything. And I have literally had clients say that. I say, what is your biggest fear here? And they will say that I'll never stop getting bigger. And I usually say, when we go through all these things and we start practicing this, I encourage them to go through this. We have an incident where they eat more, and I say to them, what happened? And they usually say, nothing. I was uncomfortable for about 20 minutes, and then everything kept going. The world kept spinning. It was okay. So the fear of it and the anxiety of it is bigger than the actual event itself, but we've built it up so much, and it's understandable that we've built it up so much, right? Because of the conditioning we've had, the fears that we have, the way that we've been trained to be scared of feeling satisfied, that we feel like we're running away from a bear, but really it's just like another bite of the empanada. And it's like we're like terrified of this. But really what this tells me is that this person has been deeply trained in deprivation. And that the entire concept of being satisfied is too much, is really, really scary and overwhelming. And there could be multiple layers for why that happened, right? Like there could be because of dieting behaviors, it could be GI related, it could be both, it could be so many different things. But to me, like you said, like this is really about
normalizing the idea of this discomfort and understanding why we're so uncomfortable with feeling this way. Because it has nothing to do with the food.
And I think
It's just not
also,
doing anything to you. Like it's just food.
Mhm. I think another big takeaway from this is, even if from a practical standpoint, right? If 8 feels too scary for you, let's work on different tools to be more regulated when you're at a 7,
Totally. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Like my initial instinct was also like, all right, let's pause. I'm starting to and name it. I name it saying I'm starting to feel dysregulated. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed by this. I'm starting to feel like I'm going to be overly full and that makes me nervous. Okay, what can I do to bring myself back down a little bit? Can I do some, grounding techniques? Can I do some stuff to maybe, can I remind myself that this is just food and that it's safe for me to eat and that it's okay and that this feeling of sensation of being full
No.
will pass. It will pass. I think one of the things that's important as we work through this, one, I want to just say, if you identify with this, it's okay and it's normal. And as you just heard, it's pretty understandable given the framework in which we have grown up. And it also, I think, could be proportionate to the level of deprivation and dieting and types of stuff and restriction you have done, right? If you haven't done a lot, you might feel like, oh, this feels a little less like me. But if you've done a lot of deprivation and you're kind of used to under eating, whether it's strategic or learned, it will feel uncomfortable having more than what you are used to having. And also, at the same time, we also have to recognize that maybe you've been under eating for a really long time. And we have to work on taking moments to ground yourself throughout this entire experience and honor the fact, oh, wow, I'm starting to notice that I am reacting to this plate of food as if my whole nervous system is getting dysregulated. And I think it's really important to identify that and then remind yourself it's safe for me to eat. This is just food. This feeling will pass. And then do some tools to support your nervous system come back down. People sometimes will even I've even told clients of mine, if they start to feel really overwhelmed about a plate of food or whatever, is to go get a piece of ice, hold it, put it on their neck, recalibrate, calm down a little bit, and then come back to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have a couple of episodes on regulation tools, both for food and body image stuff, I think from 2 years ago,
Oh, fun.
maybe. So I'll make sure to put those in the show notes as well. Thanks, guys.
Hope this was helpful.